Welcome friends. In this video we are going to discuss about the types of cell signaling. That is how the cells communicate with each other in different ways. The types of cell signaling can be classified on the basis of how the signaling molecule after it is synthesized travels to the target cells, and further it is based or it depends on the distance that is present between the synthesizing cell, signal synthesizing cell, and the signal responding cell. In this picture you can see we have two cells. One is the signal making cell, signal producing cell. Other one we have is the signal responding cells, and we have two lines which are drawn this way and they are meeting at a point. This point actually is representing that these two cells are meeting finally. Okay, so initially you can see the cells are like this way. Okay, and there is a lot of distance which is present between them. Okay, so the signaling molecule after it is synthesized, it has to travel from here to here. Okay, it has to cover this much distance. Then gradually the distance is decreasing. Okay, now the signal responding cell is coming or approaching towards the signal producing cell. So the signaling molecule now can act on the local cells or the cells which are in vicinity of the signal producing cell. Finally, you are going to see a type of cell signaling when both the cells, signal producing cell and the signal responding cell, they are in direct contact with each other. Okay, so now let's discuss the types of cell signaling. We have basically four types of cell signaling. The first one we have endocrine signaling. Okay, in this particular type we have the cells which are producing the signal, and these cells, they are known as endocrine cells. These endocrine cells, they are present in the endocrine glands. So we can say the endocrine glands possess endocrine cells. Now they are synthesizing these signals in blue color. Okay, here specifically these signals are known as hormones. So the signals which are present in endocrine signaling, they are known as hormones. Now these hormones, they have to travel from here to finally these cells, and these cells are known as distant target cells. So you can see here is that there is a lot of distance which is present between the endocrine cell and the distant target cell. So the question here is how these signaling molecules which are known as hormones, they will reach the target cells. So that is done with the help of blood vessel. So this tube is like blood vessel. So blood vessels are helping for the movement of these molecules to the target cells. So the examples of this kind of signaling is shown by hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine, and insulin. I have highlighted here epinephrine and norepinephrine. We will talk about it later why. Now the next type of signaling we have is the paracrine signaling. Imagine that the cells are now approaching towards each other so that the distance between those two cells is getting decreased. Here you can see we have the secretory cell, okay, which is synthesizing the signal, and then we have a target cell which is nearby. Okay, so the signals which are produced here, they can make a contact or bind to the receptors which are present on the nearby target cells. So the main point of this kind of paracrine signaling is that the distance between these two cells is very less, and this signaling is shown by fibroblast growth factor and hedgehog family proteins. Now there is something more to know about paracrine signaling. You have heard about neurons or the nerve cells. These nerve cells, they also possess the same kind of signaling, that is the paracrine signaling. But here it is referred as synaptic or the neuronal signaling. You can also call it paracrine, but more specifically it is known as synaptic signaling. So here what we have, this is the first neuron, okay, and this is the second neuron. And we know if it is paracrine, so there is very less distance present between these two cells. Now there is some space between these two neurons. This space between two neurons is known as synapse. So synapse is a intraneuronal junction which is present between two neurons. It can also be present between a neuron and a muscle cell, and then it's known as neuromuscular junction. So the neuron which is present before the synapse, this one, it is called as presynaptic neuron. And if it is present or following the synapse, then it's called as postsynaptic neuron, after the synapse. Okay, and the molecules which are synthesized here, the signaling molecules, they are called as neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are here in the synapse. After they are synthesized in the cell, they come out of the cell, then they bind to the receptors which are present on the postsynaptic neuron. Now let's talk about the third type of cell signaling, which is known as the Juxta Quine. This is very important. Here the distance between the two cells is finally no more distance between the cells. That is, they are making a direct contact. How? So we have a attached signal. The signal which is attached to this membrane of what? Signaling cell. So the signal here is attached to the membrane of signaling cell, and that membrane attached signal is making direct contact with the receptor of the target cell. So this becomes the touching target cells or the adjacent cell. Now the example of this kind of signaling is the gap junctions. The gap junctions are basically the cytoplasmic bridges which are formed between two cells for the transfer of the signaling molecules. Next example we have is the notch pathway. These are very important, and I will make different videos on these too. Now the next and final type of cell signaling is autocrine. Here auto means self. So signaling here is done on and by the same cell. Normally in cell signaling systems, what we see? Two cells. The communication happens between two cells, that is the signal synthesizing cell and the signal responding cell. The communication happens in between these two cells. Here in autocrine, same cell is synthesizing the signal, and that very same cell is responding to that signal. Now let's understand this through this diagram. The signals are here, signaling molecules. After they are in the extracellular matrix, it's their turn now to go to these receptors. These receptors, they are present on the same cell. So the signals, they bind to the receptors which are present on the same cell. This type of signaling is a feature of cultured and cancer cells. It is found in cultured cells and cancer cells. In cancerous cells, they release growth factors which help in the uncontrolled or unregulated proliferation of tumor or cancerous cells. Now I want to tell you something. Sometimes we see in signaling systems that single type of signaling molecule is involved in more than one type of cell signaling. Let's take an example. Epinephrine and non-epinephrine. I told you earlier that we will talk about it later. This epinephrine is acting as a hormone in endocrine system. We have seen that. So it has to travel from here to here. It travels a long distance to reach the target cells. But the same molecule is also acting as a neurotransmitter. So when it acts as a neurotransmitter, it is involved in paracrine or synaptic signaling. Okay, so this was all about the different types of cell signaling. In the next video, I will be talking about the GPCRs or the G protein coupled receptors. If you liked my video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.